No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. This is Outspoken Live, episode number 27. But how long will Brits be able to be outspoken, with Nigel Farage revealing on US TV that he is terrified about being arrested?
Nigel, let me ask you, for you personally, are you concerned that any statements you make could get you arrested?
Yes.
I'll reveal why he feels that way in my digest next, and explain why the UK needs to listen to three men: Winston Churchill, Christopher Hitchens, and Mr. Bean, when it comes to protecting our God-given rights to freedom. Also coming up today, race baiter in chief Humza Yousaf, Mr. White, wants to sue Elon Musk, but he's just been completely owned by the ex-mogul. The left continue on their deranged rampage to try and get Douglas Murray arrested. I'll show you what for. And Prince William's new beard has divided the internet. I like it though, but what do you think? We'll debate all of the big issues of the day and the beard with YouTube sensation Mahyar Tousi, the man behind the brilliant Tousi TV. He's with me for the entire main show today. Then in our uncancelled after show, our viewers roundtable, where you get your say. You can register to watch on our website at www.outspoken.live. It's a safe space, free of censorship, and your support at just £5 a month not only gives you 30 minutes of extra content every single weekday, it also allows us to continue making this independent daily news show. But now, let's go. The great Winston Churchill is reported to have once said, "Everyone is in favour of free speech. Hardly a day passes without its being extolled. But some people's idea of it is that they are free to say what they like, but if anyone says anything back, that is an outrage." An apt description, you'd think, of our chilling new life under two-tier Keir Starmer, an authoritarian leader who in just 4 weeks in Downing Street is stamping on Britain's right to speak freely about the most controversial political issues of the day. So just like during World War II, today I make a plea to our American friends: save us from this tyranny. Your pressure online, largely on free speech hero Elon Musk's X, to humiliate the left in the UK is working. But we need to keep up the pressure, and we need you to keep up the pressure, because things are bad here. Real bad. A 55-year-old businesswoman, critical of government policies for years, arrested, then locked up for over 48 hours for posting information about the Southport massacre with the caveat, if this is true. This 28-year-old, Jordan Parler, sent down for 20 months for a Facebook post about the riots, which he never actually attended in physical form. Tyler Kay, sentenced to 38 months in prison for copying a post made on X by Lucy Connolly, the wife of a Tory politician, a situation Elon Musk quite rightly condemned by saying, "This is messed up." And now, our potential future Prime Minister, the unofficial leader of the opposition, Nigel Farage, he's had to go on American TV, not British TV, which is censored, American TV, to admit he is now worried himself about being arrested.
Nigel, let me ask you, for you personally, are you concerned that any statements you make could get you arrested?
Yes, I mean, after the triple murder of those poor, sweet little girls, a few hours went by, and there was huge speculation online about this man. Was he an illegal immigrant? Was he an Islamist? And no one knew the truth. And I simply asked on X, did this man have a record? Is he somebody that the security services were watching? Answer there came none. Then after the riots happened, you've got the whole establishment saying that I encouraged rioting. Well, I mean, all I did was to say, please tell us the truth. Funnily enough, if they had told us the truth, the rioting would not have been anything like as bad as it was, and the authorities need to wake up to an online world. So yes, I am currently coming under a serious assault, and many of the campaigners on the left are publicly saying that I should be arrested simply for asking to know the truth about the murderer.
And
so
that
yeah,
is,
I'm worried.
yes.
Now, I think Nigel has a genuine reason to be worried. I've actually spoken to some of the country's most prominent conservative and independent thinkers over the weekend, all of whom have expressed fear that they could end up behind bars amid a very obvious attempt by the establishment to eradicate controversial debate. For an idea about what Slippery Starmer thinks about this issue, listen to his biographer Tom Baldwin, a senior Labour advisor on Newsnight.
But there's a sort of silly argument sometimes about free speech, and Musk is sort of trying to pretend sort of freedom of speech is some absolute right. It's never been an absolute right, and we have regulation. The BBC is regulated. I think the BBC is better for being regulated. I don't think we have enough regulation in the press. I think the press is worse for not being regulated. Social media is just another form of media, and for too long, people in that sort of internet world, this whole idea of freedom of the internet, they've thought that sort of somehow that this great technological change can go through without touching the sides of democracy. I think democracy needs to sort of reinsert itself.
Yeah.
Believe them when they say free speech is dead, and then we've got to fight for our right to express ourselves online, to inspire you to be brave and to show our American cousins that actually the best of British very much believe in the need for free speech. I want to provide you two really important moments of context from the past. First, the comedian who created Mr. Bean, Rowan Atkinson, who is perhaps most importantly an eloquent champion of free speech.
Underlying prejudices, injustices or resentments are not addressed by arresting people. They are addressed by the issues being aired, argued and dealt with, preferably outside the legal process. For me, the best way to increase society's resistance to insulting or offensive speech is to allow a lot more of it. As with childhood diseases, you can better resist those germs to which you have been exposed. We need to build our immunity to taking offence so that we can deal with the issues that perfectly justified criticism can raise. Our priority should be to deal with the message, not the messenger.
Now that was 12 years ago, and how far we have fallen. But now the late, great Christopher Hitchens, who warned back in 2009, just 2 years before his death, exactly the direction the UK was heading, and the peril actually if we failed to heed his warnings.
Give it up or give it to your deadliest enemy and pay for the rope that will choke you. This is very urgent business, ladies and gentlemen, I beseech you. Resist it while you still can, and before the right to complain is taken away from you, which will be the next thing. You will be told you can't complain because you're Islamophobic. The term is already being introduced into the culture as if it was an accusation of race hatred, for example, or bigotry, whereas it's only the objection to the preachings of a very extreme and absolutist religion. Watch out for these symptoms. They are not just symptoms of surrender, very often ecumenically offered to you by men of God in other robes, Christian and Jewish and smarmy ecumenical. These are the ones who will hold open the gates for the barbarians. The barbarians never take a city till someone holds the gates open for them. And it's your own preachers who will do it for you, and your own multicultural authorities who will do it for you. Resist it while you can. And if you wonder what will happen if you don't, look and see how a cricket team in Middlesex in England had to change its name by force last week because it was called, and had been for years, the Middlesex Crusaders. Look and see how stories about little pigs can't be taught to children in English schools anymore, lest offence be taken by the religion of peace. Resist it while you can.
One of the things that is coming up over and over again is Islamophobia. And, well, you can see the stats, you can see the numbers rising, particularly since October the 7th. Although we shouldn't fall into the trap of thinking that before October the 7th, this was all heading in the right direction. It's been far too high for far too long. Clearly, we need to just say over and over again, Islamophobia is intolerable. It can never, ever be justified. And we have to continue with a zero tolerance approach. And I think there's more we can do in government. There's certainly stuff online which I think needs tackling much more robustly than it is at the moment.
What I'm hoping, Keir, is your experience as a prosecutor means you'll be thinking about the strategy we can use to make sure we take action against those who break.
Give it up.
Maya, can you hear us?
Hello.
Hello, sorry, could you not just hear me there, Maya?
No.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I can't see anything anymore. I can't see.
We're just having some technical issues here, but look, we, Maya, are very concerned about what is happening here in the UK. Of course we are. Nigel Farage says we should be worried that he could be arrested. This is the man who's about to be the potential leader of the opposition. This is North Korea stuff. This is Russia stuff. What is happening?
Oh, it's funny because until recently we used to make fun of the Canadian government for going authoritarian against free speech. We were making fun of the French for rioting. Seems like we do take a lot of best case studies or worst case studies from the world when it comes to the British government and society in general. It's slightly worrying, obviously, but I'm still optimistic because obviously I was raised as a fighter in a sense that anything that bad that happens if you're going through darkness, then at least be aware that there will eventually be light, and you have to be aware of what's going on. So a lot of people are still burying their heads in the sand. A lot of people who don't follow politics or current affairs or even watch new media outlets, they're still being fed by the BBC, CNN, and all those guys. So I think what's been going on, while it's very dark and sad, it will be waking a lot of people up.
Yeah, it definitely will. But the thing is, do you understand why people are terrified, Maya? I mean, we've literally seen folk thrown into jail for 2 years for retweeting something.
I think one of the main problems that a lot of people have is, and I get contacted by people who watch my channel, is it's the inconsistency. It's uncertain. They don't know exactly what the rules are because they keep changing every 10 minutes. And some rules are not part of the rules. For example, as you said, people have been posting inaccurate content on social media, or somebody was watching a protest on a pavement and it makes no sense, because I think a lot of people are just scared because of that. They don't even know. Because back in the day, it was easy. Don't incite violence. If you incite violence, that's illegal. And then over the years, they're like, don't be offensive. Well, then that was also, what was the gray area? Because, anything could be offensive. Offense is taken, not given. And now people are concerned because they're saying, well, even if I don't even offend someone, I can get into trouble. That makes no sense.
Now, what did you make of that clip from Christopher Hitchens, who warned? I mean, it's incredible, Maya, when you think about it. 14 years ago, he died 2 years after that clip, and he warned that this could result in Islamophobia being banned. Then cut to the clip of Starmer and Sadiq Khan saying exactly that.
It's a very classic human thing. We continue to not learn from history, and this is only 14 years ago. So when Christopher Hitchens was talking about this, and I think the fact that he's no longer with us is actually part of the problem, because if he were still alive, he could have reminded us 6 years ago, 4 years ago, last year, and now. It might have helped a little bit. I don't think it was going to be a complete victory if he was still alive, and we would have actually won that battle, but the battle of words, because it matters. That's how people say it's the leftists. It's not really just the leftists. It's control freaks, what I call statists, those who are believers of the state should be in charge of your life. They always use words against you. And when these sort of things have already happened in countries like Lebanon and Iran in the 1970s, when the Islamic occupiers managed to do a paramilitary coup and take over, how did they do it? The liberals allowed them to do it. And then, of course, they went the hard left. But then who was the first victim? It was the same far left who were actually helping the Islamic occupation. And that every single time it backfires. I don't understand how many times we have. And it's not really just about the Islamic issue. It's about the control freaks and those who want to control your life. And it could come from different angles.
Yeah, all you're doing is pushing this issue underground. You're not changing the fundamentals. You're not solving the situation in the country, and it's actually going to get a lot worse for you. But Maya, there is so much proof as well of two-tier policing by the day. So I want to show you this one example. So this is Dr. Anis Altilriki. Now, he was filmed by 5 Pillars at the anti-racist demos in Harrow. He's from the Cordoba Foundation. But listen to what he had to say, Maya.
So let's make absolutely clear. We are here to eradicate a cancer to all human beings. Let's never believe in the lie that they wish to take back the country. The country that is riddled with racism is a country that cannot thrive, cannot prosper, cannot live, cannot survive.
Maya, I mean, how on earth... And by the way, can I just be clear? I don't want him to be arrested, but if you're arresting all the folk on the other side, how on earth can he walk the streets?
The problem is you now have various mentalities and cultures who are here, and I'm not just talking about necessarily foreign cultures. I'm talking about different philosophies and worldviews, whether it's communists, whether it's Marxists, whether it's the left-wing liberal wokey weirdos, whether it's the Islamists. They have this problem, which is they genuinely believe they are the goodies, and they genuinely believe that they are the ones on the side of the right, in a sense that when they fight, it's justified. When they punch you, it's justified. When they come and steal your property, that's justified, because they always have an excuse for it. So they go around saying, yeah, we need to fight racism. Oh, well, that Jew needs to go, for example, or that white person needs to go. It's the same thing that happened by the followers of Karl Marx over the last century, saying, yeah, we love all humans. Unless you have some money in your bank account, then we're going to come for you. And I don't understand why those who claim to be our protectors, those in the state, those in the authorities, and I do believe that not all of them have turned into wokey weirdos. There are some people who are, they might be out of touch, but they genuinely believe that, yeah, they are protecting the country, they are protecting society. How can they not see what's going on? Or are they completely powerless now? And can't they speak? What's going on?
Well, yeah, totally. I totally agree with all of that. But Maya, also, what I find so fascinating is these wokey weirdos, as you call them in the establishment, all of a sudden they're really tough, Maya, when they have white working class criminals to track down. They're more than happy to ignore the pro-Hamas riots. They're more than happy to ignore all of the middle class white folk trying to stop the highways as part of Just Stop Oil. But look at what happens when the white working class express their discontent. I want to show you Chief Constable Serena Kennedy from Merseyside Police. Now, this is Merseyside Police that, by the way, if your home is broken into, they're probably not going to come around. They're certainly about 95% not going to solve it. But if you're a white working class person who decided to attend a riot, even if you weren't involved in any violence, listen to her warning.
What I would say to those people who think they've got away with being involved in the disorder on Tuesday or on Saturday, you absolutely haven't got away with it. We are coming for you. We've got hours of social media footage. We've got hours of CCTV footage. I've got officers working round the clock to identify who you are, where you live, where you work. We are coming for you. We'll be coming for you for the next few days. We'll be coming for you for the next few months. So you might get to next week. You might be sitting with a cup of tea thinking, phew, I've got away with it. Please let me reassure you, you haven't got away with it. We are coming for you. You will feel the full force of the law.
We are coming for you, Maya. Interesting. We never had any videos like that from the police when grooming gangs were being ignored for years and years and years, did we? But it's almost like they feel safe to hunt down the white working class folk. They feel safe to demonize the white working class folk.
Yeah, for years we've been telling the police in the United Kingdom to be a little bit harder, stop being soft and vanilla.
Yes.
And the moment they started listening, they targeted the wrong people. It's fascinating because when the riots in Leeds happened in the north of England, which was about it was a gypsy family.
Oh yes, the Roma thing, but there were Muslim sects and that as well.
Yeah, but no, but the issue with that was that the actual cause, the reason for the riots, they said that because social services came, took the kids because the parents were bad, and the pundits, the liberals, and the media, everybody said, well, no, these people are angry, they're concerned about what happened to these children, so that's fine what happened. And then when 3 little girls were literally killed, and people were angry and came out and did their similar things, like in Leeds, then that was different. That wasn't justified. 3 people lost their lives. But also the police in Leeds, when the riots happened, and yes, it was a combination of all communities. You had some from the Muslim community, you had some from the Eastern European countries, but the police told the emergency services to actually avoid the riot zone all night until the next morning. And they also, afterwards, they said nothing, absolutely nothing. These warning videos you just showed, we've heard this so many times over the last week or so from the police, Mark Rowley and all the others, we'll come for you. They haven't said any of that to the Leeds rioters.
No. And by the way, the 2 men who we saw with our own eyes, Maya, beat up police officers at Manchester Airport, well, they haven't been charged. They're hosting press conferences.
I mean, those guys, that was a fascinating one because they also, one of them managed to beat up his own mum. I mean, it makes it in the middle of all this. I was like, what is going on?
I know, that poor mother. That poor mother. Exactly. But look, I think we see so many examples of two-tier policing. That is the problem. We see it with our own eyes. How do you feel, Maya, as well, about the fact that actually there feels like massive intellectual dishonesty coming from all parts of the mainstream media? So I'll give you an example. I switched on very briefly GB News on Saturday. My old employer. Well, exactly. It was a mistake because I was angry immediately in a few seconds because on their main news bulletin, I think this was at 7 p.m, they stated as a fact, Maya, that the riots had been caused by social media disinformation, blaming the Southport massacre on an asylum seeker or someone who had entered the country illegally on a boat. Now, that is so untrue. And I expect that from the BBC. I expect that from Woke ITV. I expect that from Sly News. But from GB News, it's like, this is not true, Maya. If you look at what happened, right, literally the day of the massacre, there were about 2 hours where that false piece of information spread, but very quickly police confirmed that the man was born in the UK. By the time the riot started, we were all aware that he was the son of immigrants from Rwanda. That's what caused the anger. That's what caused the locals to heckle Slippery Starmer. Do you remember when he visited the Southport massacre site? So for media, the mainstream media, to now be stating as fact that the British people are so stupid that we were suckered in by a couple of incorrect tweets and that's what caused the discontent is just so offensive.
They make it sound like, as you said, that the reaction was instant. If it was instant within like half an hour or an hour, then yeah, that theory could be true. That,
yes.
It only took half an hour, but it was the next day anyway. Everybody already knew the information. And I would say actually the main reason for the outrage and the protests wasn't necessarily that it was confirmed it was a kind of someone with foreign background. It was the fact that it was 3 little girls. We've had so many attacks by either legal migrants, illegal migrants, Islamists, this, that, over the last few years. If it were just because of that, or there's a foreign attack, then we would have had riots every single week. And this time that everything got built up and eventually imploded, and the fact that 3 little innocent girls were the victims, that was the last trigger for a lot of people in the country. If they just wanted to show their prejudice and racism, they could have come out every week when there's a stabbing by some sort of migrant in London or in Manchester.
Exactly. It sometimes, Maya, it takes a crime, doesn't it, of such horror that actually it inspires a new movement. And what's so interesting is all of these people who are so disgusted by the white working class anger after the Southport massacre were very happy with the Black Lives Matter riots that destroyed American cities and caused mass carnage in London, where so many police officers were injured. They thought the death of George Floyd was a crime that was acceptable to spark that violence. Even Two-Tier Care, look, there he is, down on his knees. He was absolutely happy with the Black Lives Matter rights. So we do see so much two-tier policing. But the other thing, Maya, that we're seeing at the moment is a real deranged push on the left to get key figures in our movement, people who I know you respect and I respect, arrested. Now, the latest is Douglas Murray, the brilliant intellect, brilliant author, brilliant commentator, a guy who has had his finger on the pulse, just like you have, Maya, in terms of this issue for many, many years. Now, they're trying to do this. The latest attempt to try and do this is actually with an interview that he gave with the former Australian Deputy Prime Minister, John Anderson. But as usual, Maya, the leftists are taking this completely out of context to make it look as if this was an interview that he gave after the Southport massacre, when in fact it was 9 months ago that he sat down for this chat. But I'm going to show you it and then get you to respond to the reaction from the left.
But clearly they've lost control of the streets. Now, is it time to send in the army at some point? Probably yes. But if the army will not be sent in, then the public will have to go in, and the public will have to sort this out themselves. And it'll be very, very brutal. I don't want them to live here. I don't want them here. They came under false pretenses. Many of them came illegally and continue to come illegally. And we don't want them here. And I'm perfectly willing to say that because it needs to be said.
So, Maya, George Galloway, leader of the Workers' Party, tweeted, "This is a criminal offence," copied in the Metropolitan Police and Elon Musk. Bush Rashake, the hard left commentator, said, "Met Police, this is a clear incitement to hatred communication, which is threatening and intending harm." Your response, Maya?
Firstly, when it comes to George Galloway, his fashion sense and hat collection is a criminal offence. But the reality of the situation is that they're going around saying Douglas Murray is some sort of a far-right thug enemy, basically. The guy is so nice. Also, what they do, and they always do this, and this is, I'm talking about humans who believe in control. And throughout history, since the ancient empires, what you do when there's a crisis, you either find a scapegoat, or you sometimes throw someone from your side under the bus to shift the blame, or you try to find a villain. So if you bring down a villain, you could tell the public everything's fine now. So, for example, when they killed bin Laden, they came out and said, everything's fine now, terrorism is over. It wasn't. Now, over the last few days, couple of weeks, they've been coming for certain people. It's like a ladder thing. So first they came for individuals like Tommy Robinson. Now, some people like Tommy, some people don't like Tommy. But then Tommy himself also admits that, in the past he's made mistakes. He's actually a better person now anyway. He's got a following. He did 2 rallies recently, peaceful, family friendly. But from day one of these protests, he's been saying, don't riot, don't do violence. They used him to say he's actually coordinating from abroad as if he's some sort of like supervillain. And then when that didn't work, because they're like, that's not enough. Even if you bring him down, it's still not going to be enough. Let's go for the next level, Nigel Farage. If Nigel literally is so mainstream now, he's so soft, it makes no sense why he would even be responsible. There's no evidence. And when that's not enough, then they'll go for Douglas. And when that's not enough, they'll come for every single person. But that's why they're not winning anymore. That mentality is not winning because of the rise of new media and social media. That's why they now want to shut down social media so that we can't even speak.
Yeah, there's such a mission creep going on. But Maya, I have been left disgusted actually by the mainstream media, especially the newspapers like The Sun and the Daily Mail and the Express, all pushing for censorship. And it's like, if you are not careful, you will be censored next, because it's all well and good while you're on the side of slippery Starmer for him to allow newspapers to continue to print. But if you open up the door to this sort of censorship, you could be next. And look, Maya, when it comes to The Sun in particular, because remember, many years ago, I was the executive editor of The Sun, and we used to hate Keir Starmer, because do you remember when he was Director of Public Prosecutions, he launched an insane bid to jail many, many Sun journalists. He did prosecute them. They were all found not guilty. They didn't go to jail, but many of their sources did. And this was for revealing information that the Sun always argued was in the public interest. So sometimes they were taking information from government officials. But the point is, Keir Starmer has proven he is not a man who believes in a free press, and a man who believes in journalism. So it's all well and good now when you think, oh, you know, you're just shutting down a citizen journalist. Who cares about that? And then, Maya, they come up with all of the old tropes, don't they? Oh, that person's an anti-vaxxer. They were against lockdown, so they must be a madman. Well, you know, call me a madman if that's the case. But do you see what I mean? It's easy now to go for the low-hanging fruit on social media. But if you allow this type of authoritarianism, actually, it will be journalists next. We've seen that happen all around the world under authoritarian regimes.
And the problem is that you have two different types of tyranny or authoritarian mentality. One is from those who are more dictatorial as individuals throughout history, and they are honest with you. They're open, like, I'm the dictator. I will tell you what to do. You know where you stand with them, and you find a way to deal with them. But there are people, and this is because of the Western system, they can't really come out and openly say, I want to be a tyrant. And because they've also been told that's the bad thought. You can't think that. So they try to become, as they claim, more grown-ups. Every time they win, they say the grown-ups are back in charge. Joe Biden, Keir Starmer, the grown-ups. But actually, look at the history of all these individuals. Keir Starmer, only a few years ago, he was still a revolutionary socialist Republican against constitutional monarchy. He is not some sort of Blairite. I mean, even Blair was actually, when he was young, he was a Republican anyway, but at least he was more liberally, more new liberal globalist. But these people, they always have it in them. And when they are told to hide it, and when they tell themselves to hide it. So Keir Starmer, in order to become a professional politician, he had to even lie to himself that, oh yeah, you're not really a revolutionary socialist anymore, are you, Keir? Just basically be a nice grown-up, wear a nice suit and tie. But eventually, when they get into power, it comes out, it implodes, and they don't know how to do tyranny the right way. We don't know how to deal with them. I would rather, it's a weird thing to say, I'd rather deal with someone like Saddam Hussein, you know where you stand with him, rather than someone like Keir Starmer or Justin Trudeau, Mark Drakeford, all these idiots. They don't even know how their decisions are coming from, because they're like, surely this is not tyranny. No, this is right. I'm going to ban books in Wales. That's what Mark Drakeford did. That was he genuinely believed that's the right decision. Justin Trudeau banning free speech in Canada. He genuinely doesn't see that tyranny. Whereas Saddam Hussein knew, I'm doing this because it's tyranny, but it's good for you. At least you know where you stand with that.
Well, look at what look at Jacinda Ardern in New Zealand too, who sacked a whole load of doctors and nurses and teachers because they would not be jabbed by the government, and she's caused absolute societal mayhem in that country. And as soon as she knew she was going to lose, tottles off to the globalist circuit, where she's going to be paid millions and millions of pounds by people like Tony Blair for the rest of her life. This is how they operate, and I think you're completely right to point out that with Starmer, we know all of this. He's been hiding in plain sight. It's just that the media haven't asked him the tough questions. Are you really still a Republican? Do you really want to rejoin the EU? He didn't answer any of these questions during the campaign. And I know, Maya, that if he had been Prime Minister during COVID, we would have seen absolute tyrannical restrictions in this country. I mean, look, he's proven that he's a tyrant after just 4 weeks. And I know some people will say that that language is hyperbolic, but I'm sorry, Maya, when you are throwing ordinary citizens with no criminal record, no track record of any form of law breaking into jail for 2 years for retweeting something, I'm sorry, you're a tyrant in my books.
But there's one thing to add, because you mentioned Douglas Murray's video. Today, it's now obviously been exposed that it's an old video. They're still double downing. They're saying it doesn't matter if it's old. He said it. Actually, how about Keir Starmer posting on Twitter 2 years ago saying AstraZeneca is safe?
Yes.
That's inaccurate information.
Misinformation.
Should he be arrested?
Oh, yeah. And if we're talking about encouraging violence, Maya, I give you Wes Streeting, the health secretary, who tweeted numerous times that he wanted to throw Jan Moi, the Daily Mail columnist, under a train. Numerous tweets threatening violence. So this is the problem. And I think what we've got to be really careful about is that we're not saying that we think Wes Streeting and Keir Starmer should be locked up. But what we're saying is do not open the doors to this form of censorship in the UK, because it will be you. Who's next? It's great when it's your enemies doing this, but I actually tried to reason with Carol Vorderman over the weekend, Mahyar Tousi, and I know I'm fighting a losing battle, right? Because Carol Vorderman has literally gone mad over the past couple of years. I don't know what happened to her. I think maybe she had way too much Botox or too many boob jobs or something like that. Something got into her system because she has gone mad. I used to know this woman. When I was working on the Lorraine Kelly show, she would fill in for Lorraine and was really lovely and moderate. So something's happened to her. But I said, Carol, you're on the wrong side of this issue. Be careful, because you spread a lot of hate yourself on X. Do you really want to advocate for people being locked up because of a tweet? Because it could be you next.
Yeah, it's funny because they generally don't see it. There's so many people,
and they think they're protected.
What's happened to them? But
because
yeah,
they are protected.
They are protected. Like now in the core, the sort of stuff that she says. If I say that, but for the other side, against the other side, I will be jailed immediately.
You'd be arrested. Yeah, yeah, you would be. Well, look at that video. Yeah. Now, look, the other problem is that there's just going to be increasing anger when this issue of illegals gets worse. And we had word that 703 migrants entered the UK legally yesterday on 11 small boats. And I was watching your brilliant live broadcast earlier today, and we still don't know some of the circumstances, so let's be careful. But an 11-year-old girl stabbed in Leicester Square, proving that life under Labour is actually going to make things even worse. And by the way, I'm not defending the Tories on this. They didn't stop the boats and law and order was out of control, but it's going to get worse.
Oh, it will get worse. And the issue is that we have people on our side. Again, just to mention someone like Tommy. Today, he's been sharing the picture of the man who stopped the attacker, and his name is Abdullah. He doesn't sound like a Christian. And even Tommy Robinson, everybody else calling him a hero, regardless of his background and everything else. You would never see Carol Vorderman, for example, praising someone who happens to be, I don't know, a Tory Brexiteer, a white person, doing something like that. They would never praise that. And this is the whole problem. And then they claim that by we, I mean anybody who's not a communist, is basically Hitler. I'm like, look, none of this makes sense. And this is exactly how they get you, because the system creates problems so they could come and pretend that they're saving you from yourselves. And there's a virus, and it's not necessarily some sort of plot, because people think, for example, you mentioned Daily Mail and The Sun and The Mirror, all of them, despite being left and right, saying the same things. Like victory for the state, the far right defeated, and all that, right? A lot of people thought, well, that means they have a meeting and they give everybody the same briefing and they force them to say the same. It's not necessarily that. You, Dan, yourself, you know, this atmosphere that we have, this culture, the media culture, political culture, means basically they don't even have to do that to brief them, to force them by some sort of MI5 figure. They all eventually, by hanging out with each other, think the same. They all get invited to the same drinks parties, and they all get told, for example, I don't know, Tommy Robinson is literally Hitler. So they all believe it. We have friends who might be more right-leaning journalists. They all still believe, as the left-wing journalists, that, you know, Mahyar Tousi, Tommy, and Dan Wootton, they're basically Hitler. And then, but at some point, eventually, it's on top of just hanging out with each other, it's like a basically virus. Also, the fact that nobody has to tell them, but they know if they want to be able to go to Downing Street for a press conference, they have to say that. Because the moment a newspaper comes out and says the opposite, you might not get invited to Downing Street anymore.
100%. They would be slammed. And I think you're completely right. I think what's even more disturbing, Mahyar, is that some of these people do actually know the truth. So, for example, they know that, let's take Katie Hopkins, for example. They know that Katie Hopkins was right on so many of these issues, and it was completely wrong to throw her out of polite society, to never allow her to work in the mainstream media again. She has, in a self-proclaimed way, effectively declared herself as a non-state individual. She says how she owns nothing and she doesn't have a bank account. There'll be lots of people in the mainstream media who know that Katie was right and that was the wrong thing to do, but none of them will be brave enough to give her a job or to give her a platform, because they know that it then puts their job on the line, their reputation on the line. So there's a lot of weakness going on here too. And I think that's where Elon Musk becomes so important, Mahyar. And I want to talk about this incredible showdown between the world's richest man, one of the most successful business people in history, and the biggest loser when it comes to politics in the UK. The worst politician in Scottish history, and that is really saying something. The former First Minister, Humza Yousaf, who's decided to try and race bait some more and become a hero of the left by going for Elon Musk. So here's what happened. He tweeted or posted on X, I should stop saying tweeted, really, given Twitter doesn't exist, and Twitter was horrible, wasn't it, Maya? But he wrote on X, Elon Musk is a dangerous race baiter who must be held to account for his actions. I can't think what it is that upsets him so much about a brown Muslim progressive politician, but his billions won't stop me calling out his support for the far right. And then, Maya, he went on CNN, the liberal news network, and went one step further. Watch.
As for Elon Musk, he is one of, I would suggest, one of the most dangerous men on the planet. He uses his billions. He is unaccountable to anyone to amplify far-right white supremacist ideology. He has, as you have rightly said, suggested, I think, is hoping for civil war in some parts of Europe, including in the UK. And instead of using X as a platform for good and using his enormous wealth for good, he is using it, I think, for the most wicked evil possible. And in terms of regulation, let me say this is something that the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, will now have to think seriously about what more needs to be done. We need to have better regulation to ensure that we don't have the kind of disinformation that has run rampant in the last week be allowed to do so in the future with such devastating consequences.
Wicked and evil. Wicked and evil.
Is it just me, or my biggest problem wasn't necessarily what he said? It was the fact that the CNN host was nodding, saying, yeah. What? Your job is to hold him to account.
Totally, utterly ludicrous. Now, quite rightly, Elon Musk responded by saying legal discovery will show that however big a racist he's been in public communications, he is vastly worse in private communications. And I don't doubt that, Maya, but please let me remind you of the racism that Humza Yousaf spread about 95% of the people he was meant to be representing. Watch.
White. The Lord Justice Clerk, white. Every High Court judge, white. The Lord Advocate, white. The Solicitor General, white. The Chief Constable, white. Every Deputy Chief Constable, white. Every Assistant Chief Constable, white. The Head of the Law Society, white. The Head of the Faculty of Advocates, white. Every Prison Governor, white. And not just Justice. The Chief Medical Officer, white. The Chief Nursing Officer, white. The Chief Veterinary Officer, white. The Chief Social Work Advisor, white. Almost every trade union in this country headed by people who are white. In the Scottish Government, every Director General is white. Every chair of every public body is white.
And 93% of Scots are white. Maya, it's hardly a surprise, is it?
I would have loved it if he had said, the king of the country, white. That would have been so good. Just everybody's white. I mean, it's funny because he said about Elon that he's not accountable. In fact, under the Western systems that we have, under the free market capitalist system that we have, Elon Musk as an individual is more accountable than our prime ministers and presidents, because if he actually does something very wrong or bad or illegal or immoral, he will go down. How? His customers will leave him. His shareholders will leave him. That's how accountable that system is compared to politicians. When they fail, what happens? Oh, they just get promoted to get a job at the United Nations. Or the European Union. Elon Musk is more accountable than all these other corrupt weirdos, and they don't really get it.
No, and by the way, Elon Musk allows these people to say whatever they want about him on X. He's launched a fact-checking service, the Community Notes, which, by the way, fact-check his tweets or his posts on X as well. So he's not trying to create some sort of information vacuum where what he says goes. It's actually a very accountable service, X. And Mahyar, it's so funny, isn't it? Seeing all of the ludicrous leftists talking about how vile the platform is and how much they want to leave it. But I laughed today when Jess Phillips, who's the complete Labour hypocrite, actually made that announcement, but she made that announcement by posting it on X. So it's like, just leave. If you want to leave, just go. I'm not going to be sad to see the back of your X posts, Vorderman or Jess Phillips or Alistair Campbell, but we know they won't, because X is the public town square. It is where people get their information from, and that's why they don't want it to be free. That's why they wanted Tommy Robinson banned. That's why they wanted Katie Hopkins banned. That's why they wanted Graham Linehan banned for calling a man a man.
I mean, there's a psychological answer to why they do this. So, but for example, some of them are going around blocking Elon on X, posting it on X, celebrating as if Elon even cares that you blocked it. Also, if I were Elon, because he surely has the ability as one of the most techy people in the world and the CEO basically of X, I'm sure he can press one button and unblock everybody. Yeah. So literally, he can block him and he could be like, "Hello, I'm back," but. He could literally force all his posts to be in front of every page. Yeah. But the reason that there's an answer psychologically for this is because politics is no longer really about left and right in that sense, but in terms of the philosophy part of politics, it is about the traditional left and right in a sense, conservative-minded individuals, and by conservative, not necessarily Tory, conservative-minded, traditional-minded people, more pro-independent. These are the used to be small-town people, villagers, farmers. They can live on their own for 6 years without any support from the state. And then you got the more obviously pro-statist kind of mindset, whether it's the liberal leftists or socialists. The difference between the two sides is that if, for example, more independent-minded people, conservative-minded, traditional-minded people, if they get angry at something like X or back in the day Twitter, what's their solution? They will leave it. They're like, I don't need it anymore. I'm going to leave. I'm going to use something else. Whereas those who we call now liberal leftists or wokey weirdos or socialists, these people don't believe in independence. They will not be able to do anything after leaving X. So what they do is they want to take over. They want to take control of it. Don't make your own.
Their solution, isn't it, is to censor, to control, to regulate. And we see how shocking that is, where Richard Dawkins can't even post on Facebook anymore about biology because Facebook considers that too controversial a post. So thank God for X, because the rest of big tech is totally censored. I also wanted to show you a clip that upset me yesterday, Mahyar, because I don't know about you, but I'm seeing more and more a lot of snaring in the mainstream media towards white working class folk when they try and raise concerns about the changes that they're seeing in the UK. And I think it's actually brave to talk about some of these changes. It doesn't mean that you're racist. It just means that you're concerned. And when a caller tried to do this with Rachel Johnson, the sister of the former Prime Minister Boris Johnson, on her LBC show last night, well, he got short shrift. Have a look.
Have you watched the TV lately? How many white British males you see on the television? Especially in the advertising. It is just so politically correct. And what it does, it makes people frustrated. And I've got...
Hold on, this is really, John, do you saying that just because there's a mixed race family in the Sainsbury's Christmas ad, you're going to have white males rioting on the streets?
No. What I'm saying to you is I've got lots of friends, male and female, all of a certain age, and we're all fed up. And a lot of us have stopped watching television because we're fed up with the political bias.
You mean the ethnic bias? You mean the ethnic bias?
Yeah, towards ethnic people and women, not only ethnicity, and women. And what happens is the white British
But
male...
you could always watch reruns of Dad's Army or something on BBC iPlayer, couldn't you, John?
Why would I want to do that?
Well, because then you could see your own demographic reflected back at you.
No, that's not my demographic.
Okay, you said you're a white male of a certain age.
But I'm telling you what people are feeling. I'm not saying what... I'm not taking any sides. I've got friends of all ethnic backgrounds. It makes no difference to me what.
And do they object to what they're seeing on their tellies?
Yeah, because when I was working at a local authority, the women there were telling me how embarrassed they were that people were being overlooked for jobs just for it to be politically correct.
I don't know if it's politically correct is the reason, but I do think that local authorities, public sector employers do want to reach out for inclusion to offer jobs to minority groups, and I don't have a problem with that.
Now, Maya, what I had a problem with there, and I actually have always thought Rachel Johnson was a decent enough woman, but it's the snaring. She's so horrified. Number one, she's probably thinking, oh God, am I going to lose my job if I don't argue with this caller? But number two, she feels really embarrassed about it and immediately tries to belittle how he's feeling. Whereas actually, does he not have a point that there are a lot fewer roles these days for white working class folk? And actually, if you look at the breakdown now, especially on channels like Woke ITV, there's over-representation of minority groups, especially on panel shows like Loose Women.
So there is a difference between, there are two different types of people. There are actually hateful left-wing people, and I would include people like James O'Brien into that category.
Oh, yes.
And there are people like Rachel. Rachel reminds me of a couple of other mutual friends that we actually have who are very, let's just call them liberal, wokey. You know, they go on a certain channel as contributors and all that. But
I have an idea of who you mean.
But I've had conversations with our friends. Rachel is like that because they genuinely, they're not hateful leftists. No. They live in London, for example. They hang around a bunch of middle-class, legal, professional migrants from France, and one could be from one gay person from Saudi could be here, and then they go around saying, "But I'm hanging out with all the foreigners, all the gays, everybody," and you're complaining in a small town near Birmingham about foreigners. You're the racist one. They genuinely believe because the foreigners and the gays and the lesbians they hang out with, that they like them, that they get along. Everybody is like that. I'm like, I can assure you, Rachel and others, you would not be able to get along with a random person from inner Birmingham from a different ethnic background because they have a lower class than you. You only hang out with the middle class foreigners who are educated like you, and you think that, look, all my friends are foreign and gay. Like, that's not really how it works.
Well, and I've seen those posts, Maya, from like the liberal elite who go through talking about, oh, my butchers from Italy, my local restaurants from, is Persian. And actually, I saw some really good posts responding to that, saying, yeah, you're looking at these foreigners as a commodity. You think they're there to serve you. But I just found it really interesting that Rachel should be so offended by that. Because, look, if you were in India, for example, and you started talking about the fact, oh, actually, there's a lot of white people in these Indian shows now, I think there should be more Indians, that would be a conversation that would be considered completely normal. I mean, it's a conversation, for example, in New Zealand, where I grew up, that was had all the time. Why are there not more New Zealanders on TV? But as soon as a member of the white British working class says we're not seeing so much of ourselves on screen these days, immediately they're considered racist. Now, look, Maya, stand by. You're a man with a good amount of stubble, Maya. So I do need to know what you think about Prince William's very controversial new beard. It really has divided the internet today. But first, though, what's so important about being independent is I'm only ever going to tell you about products that I use and truly believe in, and Verso is one of them. I've entered my 40s, so staying healthy is really important to me. I exercise virtually every day, wasn't very good over the weekend, had a few drinks, but usually I'm doing the 16-8 fast. I have lost weight. However, scientists like David Sinclair have proven we can now reverse aging with interventions that go beyond healthy habits. So I wanted a product that I knew would enhance everything I was already doing, one that's backed up by solid evidence. I cannot tell you how good Cell Being by Verso is. That's the name of the product, Cell Being. It has scientifically proven ingredients that fight the effects of aging. It does that by increasing the NAD+ levels. Now, NAD+, that's the thing that powers every cell in your body. For me, the product has been transformative. Fasting is so much easier. I've lost fat. I'm eating less too, and that's because it has blood sugar regulating effects in the product, which actually lead to fewer cravings. It really helps with sleep too and energy. So this is a brilliant anti-aging product. The really helpful thing to know too is that Verso publishes third-party testing from each batch produced to guarantee you are getting what you paid for. And I'm very excited to say an amazing offer today. If you head right now to buy.ver.so/outspoken, you will save 15% on your first order. All you need to do is use the coupon code OUTSPOKEN. The link is available in our YouTube and Rumble description. But to repeat, buy.ver.so/outspoken. Use the coupon code OUTSPOKEN. But now, back to the show and YouTube sensation Mahyar Tousi, the founder and host of Tousi TV Plus, which I'm sure you're already watching on YouTube. Because what's your subscriber count now, Mahyar? You're heading up by the day, aren't you?
Yeah, it's going crazy. We're now 625,000.
Wow. And I just remember when you were a young man on a couple of 100,000. But it is because you truly do provide the alternative voice. I remember, for example, you were talking about those Hare Hills riots on the night of the riots, and I was absolutely desperate to find some honest coverage of it, and there was nothing on the mainstream media. And on Tousi TV, you had all of the footage coming in, brilliant reaction from on the ground. And I think actually, I know you say we are the media, and I think you are the future of the media, what you're doing. You've been a real inspiration to me here on YouTube. But Mahyar, we've sometimes got to talk about light issues, right? Issues that are a little bit more fun. And Prince William's beard has completely divided the internet. Now, so he's on a summer holiday, probably in Balmoral or heading to Balmoral soon. And he released a video yesterday to congratulate Team GB after its successful Olympic Games in France. Now, the video really was probably most important because it was the first time in a while, since Wimbledon at least, that we saw Catherine. She's beaming, she's looking very healthy, suggests her recovery is going okay. But actually, all everyone was talking about was Prince William's facial hair look.
From all of us watching at home, congratulations to Team GB.
Well done on all you've achieved. You've been an inspiration to us all.
Mahyar, what do you reckon? What's your verdict as a man with a beard?
To the tower. Send him to the tower.
No!
no, it's actually, it suits him. So there's a thing, because the whole thing's been modernized anyway. And some people are kicking off saying he shouldn't be allowed to have a beard. Like, we've had kings. Like back in the day, like a lot of the German kings and Russian kings as well. They all love the beard. It says as long as he keeps it trimmed and like nice, and also it has to go with you, because if he loses more of his hair and if he actually starts having a beard, it will make him look like a pimp. I don't, that's a bit weird. Otherwise,
we can't have Pimp William. It's got to say
no,
Prince
but
William.
he's good. He's a good boy.
What's interesting about this though, Mahyar, there is a psychological aspect to this though, because the late Queen, she was pretty cool, really, when it came to most things to do with William and Harry. But the one thing that she banned William from was having a beard, especially for big occasions like his wedding. She said, "You're the future king. You have to be unshaven." And so then William was furious, like really mad, when Harry ignored that advice from the late Queen and wore a big bushy beard for his wedding to Meghan Markle. maybe it was a sign of things to come, actually, because if he'd listened to his grandmother, he wouldn't have rushed into the wedding with Meghan in the first place. But anyway, that's another story. So to me, there's a bit of a psychological thing going on here. It's William saying, you know what? I'm in charge now. No one's going to tell me not to wear a beard. And Harry, I look better than you. Because you remember Harry also made that dig about William's hairline in Spare. So there are a few little interesting things behind this beard. I don't think it's totally coincidental that he's decided to keep it for this video.
My theory is also is because Harry and Meghan became rebels, and they kind of, by being rebels, they undermine certain aspects of the monarchy, and including the costumes, traditions. It seems to be it's the Team William basically trying to take control of it. But like, now that's already happening. So Harry's doing the whole beard thing, and the beard thing is a symbolism for everything else. They're not necessarily copying what Harry and Meghan are doing. They're basically saying, well, because they started this, they've already modernized too much too quickly. If we take control of the narrative slowly, when it's suitable, he's not gonna wear a beard if he's gonna go to some sort of state dinner. I hope not. It's gonna be like too much change too quickly. But it's just taking control of the narrative. So it's not just Harry and Meghan who are trying to be cool. We are actually cool, and we have a palace.
Well, and also, I actually think William and Catherine are cooler than Harry and Meghan these days. I know the narrative was different the other way around, but don't you think Harry and Meghan just feel a bit desperate these days? And actually, William and Catherine are cool because they're not always constantly seeking attention and doing all of these dumb stunts.
Nah, Harry and Meghan are Alistair Campbell and Karen Vorderman, and William and Kate is Dan Wootton and Mahyar Tousi.
Yeah. But you know what? That's the perfect point to end. Actually, Maya, there's nothing more. There's nothing more to say apart from follow and subscribe to Tousi TV. It's absolutely incredible, and thank you so much for all of your help and support, Maya, with me setting up my own venture, because of course I looked to what you had done very significantly, and it's been a delight to have you today.
Thank you very much.
Mahyar Tousi, thank you. Now, as you know, very important for me to have a safe space not patrolled by big tech, where censorship and control runs deep. So that's why we have www.outspoken.live. It's our membership section, where you get half an hour of extra content every single day. We come off Rumble and YouTube. We move to our own platform, where we continue the conversation in the uncancelled after show. And today, very exciting, I'm speaking to you in a brand new viewers roundtable. But before we go today, I wanted to share a tribute to someone very important to Outspoken. We're a family here. I have felt your support so much, especially over the last year. And one of those people who was so important to me was Dorene Wood. She was a founding inaugural member of Uncancelled, of Outspoken. And very sadly, I learned that she has passed away. Now, Doreen was born on the 3rd of April 1938 in Preston, Lancashire, a few weeks before her beloved Preston North End won the FA Cup for the last time. By the way, Doreen probably wouldn't be happy with me mentioning that. But I want to tell you about Doreen, because she was a great woman. She was brought up in a staunchly Salvation Army family in tough times during and after the war. She sung in the Preston Salvation Army songsters, and she became their pianist for over 55 years. Doreen married Dennis Wood, an ambulance driver and former paratrooper during the war. They married in 1961. They had 2 children, Gary and Sue. She faced difficult times during her marriage, particularly in the early years. Money was tight, and Gary and Sue both remember actually the countless times that she herself went without to make ends meet and make sure that they both had what they needed. And Doreen, she's of that generation. She would never complain. I'll be right, she would say, in that time-honoured Lancashire way. And she would have given her right arm for her kids and then asked them if they needed the other one too. That's the sort of person she was, a giver. In 2013, at the age of 75, Doreen embarked on one of the last great adventures of her life when she went to live in Alberta, Canada, because Gary and Sue had actually both moved there for jobs, and she loved it, but she wanted to be near her kids, so she returned home with Gary and Sue to spend her final years living in Lancashire's beautiful Ribble Valley. In her later years, Dorene's health and mobility declined. Probably more, I think, than she would ever admit, because she was one of that generation that just didn't complain, and she never did. But she was always busy. She continued to do what she could for the Salvation Army. And right into her 80s, and I love this, she would stand in the December cold collecting donations as the army band played Christmas carols in the town centre. And when she was no longer able to go out, she would follow the Salvation Army services and do what she could for her local community online from her trusty laptop. And she was never alone either, because when her kids had left her for the day, she would always turn on GB News in the evenings to watch my former show. And that's how I got to know her. She loved my chats with Lady C. I'm told by her son Gary that she was really devastated when my former show ended, but that's why she was signed up as a founding member for her 86th birthday back in April. Dorene, she knew her own mind. She wasn't afraid to speak on it when it came to current affairs, which made her a perfect fit for Outspoken. And it says so much about her independent and forthright nature that she was on her way to vote on polling day on the 4th of July. She wanted to get out there and have her democratic say when she collapsed and very sadly and unexpectedly passed away, leaving a void for her family that will never again be filled. And of course, what's particularly sad and painful for those who loved her is that, like countless others, it's becoming apparent that she was let down by a British healthcare system that was simply not there for her when she needed it the most. And that's terrible, because Dorene was a wonderfully kind, there she is with her kids, loving and special person from a disappearing generation that knew what sacrifice and service was all about without feeling the need to shout about it. It was an absolute honour to have her as a founding member of Outspoken. I'm really going to miss her. Dorene Wood, forever missed, forever loved, forever outspoken. Remember, we are back live every weekday at 5 p.m. UK time, midday Eastern time, 9 a.m. Pacific. Do hit subscribe right now on YouTube and Rumble. Most importantly, I promise to keep fighting for you. We'll see you on the after show with our Viewers Roundtable.